Happy Thursday. Allegra here with Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. And I'm going to talk about all things about saving you time and energy so that you can have more of both to spend it on what you really want to spend it on. I mean, why spend 10 minutes doing something that actually only takes 2 minutes? And that's something we do all the time, which is why I talk in this podcast about tips and strategies, and also sometimes it's just ways of thinking. Sometimes you are just thinking about something in a way that makes it take a lot more time or energy than it really does. And who am I? Well, I am the author of 4 workbooks, and all of these books are designed to be read in an hour or less, and they're all workbooks because I know that you learn best, brain science shows it, when you do rather than just read. So these workbooks, you'll learn a tip and then you'll put it into action so that it can get into your brain. And if you don't know where to start, I would say my quick win, no matter where you are in life, is 3, 2, 1 done, which is all about the 3 mistakes that people commonly make that keep your to-do list never ending and it feels like you never make progress. Well, this book will help you address that because it'll give you the 3 solutions, and all of my books have bonus tips. So there's 3 solutions and there's bonus tips. And then if you just feel like you don't even have a spare moment for yourself, then I would say start with Rock Your Morning, which is all about creating a morning ritual to ensure that you are taken care of so you can show up as your best self in all areas of your life. So today I'm going to talk about finding time to exercise. Now, maybe you're in the part of your life where you have all the time in the world to exercise. I remember what that felt like. It was nice. I remember when a 90-minute yoga class, sure, I had the time. And now I 90 minutes to do yoga, to do only one thing, just is not where my life is right now. Now, I have a teen, and I can actually kind of, see the light at the end of the tunnel where, hey, if I wanted to do a 90-minute yoga class again, I could, but that again is not the season that I'm in right now. And by the way, if you are in that season, if you're in that 90-minute yoga season, well, great, but hey, maybe you wanna stick around and listen to this tip because maybe that season will be changing. No matter what your plans are in life, the reality is that at some point, most of us end up becoming a caregiver. It might not be to a child either, it might be to a partner or to a sibling or to a parent. At some point in your life, the numbers show that you're probably going to be a caregiver. And if you're a woman, those percentages are even higher. And I would say to you that learn the skills that you can learn now about finding time, finding those little nuggets of time that are not being used most productively. Find them now because when you enter that season of caregiving, whether you're caring for a sibling or a parent or a partner, when you enter that season, you have no idea how to find time for yourself because you're so busy surviving, and I know this from experience. Thank God I had figured out these tips before I became a mom because they have made being a caregiver, being a mom, so much easier. So, I'm going to talk about how to find time for exercise even when you are working and you are caregiving and doing all the things. But before I start talking about that, as always, I'm going to pull a quote from my little deck of cards that I love to have surprise me. And oh, I see some of you found the chat. Hello, Alex. Hello, the real 200. Are you real? Are you really real? I do see the chat quotes, so feel free to comment. And if you're watching the recording, this does go up as the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. This will be episode 112. You can always re-listen to it and chat there as well because I will see it. Okay, today's quote. Let the winds of enthusiasm sweep through you. Live today with gusto. Dale Carnegie. Let the winds of enthusiasm sweep through you. Live today with gusto. Dale Carnegie. I love this quote. I am someone who does not do well with being unhappy. I definitely spent my 20s trying out a lot of different industries and occupations, and I tried a lot of them because the minute I was unhappy, I was out of there. I am definitely someone who needs to live with the winds of enthusiasm propping me up, as Dale Carnegie says here. So when I discovered so I actually used to own a store for many years, which I loved. However, one of the things I realized is that I'm more of an idea person than a thing person. I didn't like being responsible for all of the things that were in my store. I love words and I love writing books. And what I have found is that words are the way that I get into flow. So if you've ever experienced flow, maybe you've experienced it. If you are involved with the arts, you've definitely experienced it. It's when you lose sense of time. If you are an athlete, you've probably also experienced it. I am not a runner, but I imagine flow is what people who do long distance running must get into because how else would you maintain that distance for that long? So for me, I get into flow with words. It could be a PowerPoint presentation. It can be a writing prompt. I do a writing prompt every morning. It can be a list of gratitudes. Words are what get me into flow. Words are what put the wind in my enthusiasm. And once I realized that, there was no looking back. I have helped people with their public speaking. I actually really enjoy writing speeches for other people who have a message that I want to help amplify. I love interviewing people in podcasts and coming up with the questions that are going to light them up and get them to share the thing, that nugget that I want to learn or that maybe I think my listeners want to learn. I love writing my books. I love doing PowerPoint presentations. So, seek out the wind that fans your enthusiasm because when you can get into flow, it just makes life more fun and enjoyable. And I also believe that when you get into flow, that's when you're tapping into your gifts. And I believe we're all here to share our gifts with the world. So, find your enthusiasm, find your gift, and share it with the world. Woo, thank you, Dale Carnegie. I enjoyed that. Okay, so now I want to talk about finding time for exercise because unless you're someone who loves exercise, it can be hard to fit it in when everything else is going on. Like, for instance, when my father passed away, I didn't exercise for 6 months because it just wasn't interesting to me. And uh, the exercise that I had always done in the past, I didn't feel like I had the time for with everything else I had to do with, managing his stuff and his final, you know, preparations and all of that. I just didn't feel and then I was a little bit depressed because of his passing. And I have to say, what I learned from that experience was that I cannot go 6 months without exercising. It's just really bad for me, and so in preparation of any future passings, my grandmother is 101, and I have thought about how I will act after her passing, how I will be different than after my father, because it was really hard coming back for my father's passing, like, putting the puzzle pieces back together. It was a lot harder. I made it a lot harder on myself than I needed to be by, just completely not doing anything movement related. You can go months without exercising in your 20s and probably not really feel a difference. I know for me, I noticed a difference in my mood and in my cycle. And both those things were impetus enough to make me wanna exercise because I would get grumpy and my cycle would be really painful, and that's no fun. But I found that if I exercised a certain amount, my cycle was light and easy and my mood was elevated. So, uh, but I was in my 40s when my father passed, and not exercising for 6 months is very different for a 40-year-old to come back from physiologically. Like, it really did a number on my health and my body, and so I have already told myself, "You can't go to pieces like that next time because it just doesn't serve me, and it also didn't serve my family." So, anyway, in terms of finding time for exercise, one thing that I have found is going back to Dale Carnegie, let the winds of enthusiasm sweep through you. Do what you love. For me, I have found that while I don't enjoy quote unquote exercising, I love playing sports. And so my entree back into exercising after my father's passing was hiking with friends, which, if you follow me on social media, you see I still do regularly. I love going for long walks. I especially love going for long walks when there's elevation changes because I love the exertion of the energy that is brought on by hiking a little bit of a hill, and then I enjoy getting to recover. I don't love hikes where it's a constant upward incline and then a constant decline. So I seek out hikes that have this up and down motion so I can get some workout and then get to recover. Or I also seek out, seek out walks that have a incline enough that I'm actually getting my heart pumping, but it's not so challenging that I am uncomfortable. So for instance, it we had those fires here in Southern California in January, and for months and months, we were not able to do the mountain hike that I love to do, the one that has the up and down, the rolling hills. And so I found that there was a walk that was almost the same distance. It was actually a little bit further, and the incline was subtle. I don't think you notice the incline when you're driving, but if you're on a bike or if you're walking, you notice it because you especially notice it on a bike because you have to pedal a little harder. I've done this walk a lot as a bike ride as well. But walking, you don't really notice that there's an incline until you're about 20 or 30 minutes in, where you realize, "Wow, I'm working harder than I thought I was gonna be working." And what was amazing was doing this walk, I look at my Fitbit and I saw that I was actually getting more of a heart workout than even doing my hilly hike because this incline is just so constant. So it's wonderful. Constant enough that it works your heart, but not so constant that you are mentally or physically overwhelmed by doing it. Because I know that sometimes the hilly hikes, they look intimidating, but you get so much recovery time with the downhill that it's actually not working your heart that much. Whereas this walk that I do, this subtle incline, you would look at it and you'd be like, "No problem. I can do that all day long," not realizing that just that little bit of incline is actually really, really working your heart. So, my first tip for finding time to exercise is, first of all, find something that you enjoy doing. It could be tennis, it could be volleyball, it could be soccer, it could be walking. Do something you enjoy and you're going to seek it out more. I actually also really enjoy doing aerial silks, which is, if you've ever seen Cirque du Soleil or if you've been to the Renaissance Fair, it's when people climb and they do all these acrobatics, okay? Whatever. The acrobatics are really cool, but I was never at that level. I was just kind of learning the basics of using silks. But I really enjoyed it because you really felt the difference in your upper body strength. I could feel how much stronger I was getting with it, and it was really challenging for me. It's kind of a mentally and physically challenging thing because You have to figure out how to move your body in a way that you've never done before. So I enjoy the challenge of aerial silks. Now, it's not something that I wanna do every day, but it's one of those things that I like to throw in there, like maybe once a month or something like that, right? Like, you don't have to do the same thing day after day after day. In fact, that's pretty much a case, well, at least for me, a case for boredom. So, it might be more than one thing that you do. I hike regularly, I play tennis, I like to do the occasional aerial silks class, and I also this is my most regular thing that I do that happens no matter what. I walk my dog with a weighted vest. So that happens every day. That's just kind of like built in exercise. Okay. So find the things that you like to do and then come up with a realistic schedule for doing them. The dog, walking my dog, it's a joy, but it's also a responsibility because my doggy needs a walk. And so that's something that I do every day. I do hiking with friends. I try to do it twice a week. More often, it's been happening once a week. Just kind of depends on the time of year. Tennis is similar. It's like a once a week sort of thing. Sometimes it's a twice a month thing. And then the aerial silks class, I could do that once a month. I don't see progress as quickly as when I'm doing it once a week. But for me, that's just kind of like a fun that's like a maraschino cherry. I don't need it all the time. I just like no, I don't like maraschino cherries, but you know what I mean, like on the sundae. Like, if I'm building a sundae in terms of my exercise, then the ice cream scoop is my walking the dog, and then the whipped cream is the tennis, and then the aerial silks is the sprinkles of maraschino cherry, just a little bit of it. So, figure out what you like to do. Number 2, come up with, a realistic schedule that ensures you're getting enough movement and also keeping it fun for yourself. At the bare minimum, I strive for the 10,000 steps just because it's something to shoot for. It just gives me a goal. Yesterday, I actually hit 9,700. I know some people who are very like, they will not finish their day if they haven't done 10,000 steps, and they'll go out and do a walk. Great. If that motivates you, awesome. That does not motivate me. But I do like having the 10,000 steps just kind of as a reminder of, hey, I should be, going for more steps than not. If I start getting into 7,000, then you know what? I probably haven't taken the dog for a walk yet, because usually my daily life plus taking my dog for a 30-minute walk will get me to 10,000 steps easily. So, come up with the bare minimum that you should be doing. There's lots of things out there. Some people say, 30 to 90 minutes of exercise. I leave that to you to research and figure out. However, one tip that I will share is that there was a study recently that showed that if you do 10 squats every 45 minutes, you will get the same level of benefits as you would from doing a 30-minute walk. So I wouldn't say that you should do the 10 squats instead of doing a 30-minute walk, but hey, why not? Getting up every 45 minutes is a great thing to do for your body. I think at this point, we all know how hard, ironically, how hard sitting can be on your body. And so getting up, taking a break, and doing 10 squats, that just sounds like a great way to throw it in. And so my third tip would be to find ways to, exercise snack. So I love the 10 squat idea because that's a great exercise snack. I consider walking my dog for 30 minutes to be a bit of a snack because that's not all the movement I'm going to do that day, but it's a core part of my day. And so find ways to snack your movement throughout the day. If you live in if your life is sedentary, if you do not have a lot of reason to walk, you have to find ways to get in movement. When I was in New York recently, I was walking 15,000 steps every single day, not because I was trying to, but because I had to, because I was taking public transportation and I had to get to a lot of different places. So, if you do not live that kind of life where you have to walk and you have to carry things on purpose, sometimes when you're out and about in a city that's really walkable, you are walking and carrying things. You're getting weight bearing exercise. You are getting the heart benefits of walking without even thinking. So, because I do not live that life, I have to build it in. So that would be tip number 3 is find ways to exercise snack, whether that's taking the stairs or parking your car a little bit further away. I never look for the closest parking space unless I'm running late. If I'm not running late, then I will park further away just to get some extra steps in. I will pace while I'm on the phone. If you're on the phone with someone, do not just lounge around in a chair. Do some walking, pace. I do try and do the 10 squats. I also work in squats in different ways too. For instance, when I empty my dishwasher, I do a really slow squat every time. So basically I do a slow squat and I do slow squats because I've just found that they're way more effective than fast squats. You do 10 squats where you're like 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't feel anything in your muscles, but you do a squat that is as slow as you can go, and you will feel your muscles burn so much faster than you expect. So I do a slow squat, and then I'm down there and I pull out as many dishes as I can pull out before my thighs start burning. And when my thighs start burning, I do a slow squat up. And man, at the end of unloading the dishwasher, I am feeling the burn. So, exercise, snack, and find ways to get in movement that you might not ordinarily think of. Okay. And then my final tip is to do these activities with friends whenever you can. You know, if you're playing a sport, obviously you have to do that with a friend or at least someone that you know, probably. So tennis, I do with friends. We get to chit chat while we're playing tennis. We don't play tennis that hard. It's not it's not a great compelling game to watch, but we have fun. We get our heart rate going. We get some hand-eye coordination. Paddle sports have been shown to be amazing for cognitive skills because of the hand-eye coordination, and that doesn't matter what paddle sport it is. It could be ping pong and you'll still get the cognitive benefits apparently. I don't know about heart rate in ping pong because I'm not a ping pong player, but so pickleball, ping pong, tennis, badminton, squash, all of those, you're going to have heart benefits and cognitive benefits. And by the way, that's something to think about. When you think about your movement, you need to think about how is your body benefiting because you have to exercise your heart, you have to exercise your muscles, you need to stimulate bone density, and you want to stimulate cognitive benefits. And doing just one type of exercise is not necessarily going to get you all of those benefits. So that's why I do a lot of different things. I also spend, a fair amount of time doing fascia movement. I say movement rather than exercise because fascia, I mean, it's definitely a form of exercise, but fascia is also more like functional, deep stretching. And, fascia is not a term that a lot of people still know. I think in 20 years, kind of like how yoga is now very mainstream, I think in another 20 years, fascia will be there. I spend a lot of time on fascia because I have muscles that tend to get very, very tight, and in the past, these have caused me problems like a herniated disc in my spine, and so I do a lot of fascia work in order to ensure that my muscles are not tightening down and thereby causing problems in the rest of my body, but are able to be functional. So, that would be my final tip is be sure you're thinking about all the different ways you need to maintain your body. So, You need to exercise your cardiovascular system, your muscles, keep your bones dense, keep your brain working, and then you want to keep everything loose enough that you're not prone to injury. So, those are my tips. Okay. First tip, do things you like because otherwise it's just going to be painful. Second tip, get really clear about how often and how long you want to do those things and be kind to yourself. Keep this enjoyable because if it's enjoyable, you're much more likely to do it. Third tip, exercise snack. Find ways to fit movement into your life in small bits. It's much easier to do and maintain. Fourth, find a friend. When you make it more fun, you make it much more likely to happen. And fifth, think about all the different ways you need to work to keep your body healthy and make sure you're doing some sort of movement for all of those different things. Okay. And my final tip with finding time for exercise is to start really small. I've talked about this before. My friend, when Natasha, my frequent collaborator, is on the podcast, she often talks about it. It's called the Kaizen Way. And the Kaizen Way is all about incremental improvement. Instead of saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to have this crazy exercise routine. I'm going to do 5 different things in a 7-day period, for 45 minutes each. And I'm going to be so fit. That's pretty much a recipe for disaster. Instead of doing that, find a number of days and minutes of exercise that seems super easy for you to do. When I was getting back into exercising after my father's passing, I set a goal for 20 minutes of exercise 4 days a week, which, I was doing 90-minute yoga. So 20 minutes, as you can hear, was a small number for me. I was struggling to meet the 4 days a week right when I started. So then I said, okay, you know what? New goal, 15 minutes of exercise 3 times a week. And so be kind to yourself. Get to the point where, excuse the noise in the background, get to the point where you can realistically do something. And, if you think you've set a realistic number, but you're not meeting it, guess what? You can adjust your goal down. And then when you start hitting that goal, then you can adjust your goals back up. Okay. The point of having a goal is not to meet the goal, it's more just to have some place to set your sights. Okay. So start small. When my friend Natasha was engaging with stretching as a goal, she set a goal for herself of 30 seconds of stretching. Now, granted, she wanted to do it daily. So she was saying 30 seconds of stretching, but doing daily. And that 30 seconds was anyone can do anything for 30 seconds, right? 30 seconds quickly became a minute, quickly became 2 minutes. So don't be afraid to start small. Small change is manageable and is something that you can continue for a long time. So make a small goal. And if you're not hitting that goal, go even smaller until you're hitting the goal. And then you can go upward. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you want to find out more about my books and my online courses, visit my website, bywdreams.com. That is bywdreams.com. And I look forward to seeing you next week for my live video broadcast. And remember, planning makes everything easier. Thank you so much. And be sure to rate and like and subscribe wherever you listen to the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. I appreciate it. Thank you.